It is summer berry harvest today and I'm super excited because there is lots here to harvest. I've got some strawberries over here, some cherries in the orchard, some raspberries all scattered about and lots of currants as well. These little office mesh bins have been a lifesaver for my strawberries because I usually use kind of like a cage with some wire mesh around it so nothing can get in, but things always get in, and once they do get in then they can ravage the whole patch. But this way each kind of plant is protected, so even if they do get into one they usually don't get into any more. So yeah, these have been really good and I've got quite a good harvest of strawberries down here. This is probably one of the best years for strawberries in quite a few years, I'd say. It's just been very warm and the berries seem to be pretty huge and they're ripening up really nicely. They're pretty good size at the moment. I did thin out my bed. I used to have a big strawberry bed here and these are actually just kind of runaway plants that I didn't plant myself. They just spread and I didn't move these because they kind of curved quite nicely round into this bed. So I just left them. I wasn't really expecting too much fruit and by gosh, there is loads of ripe berries in here. I'm actually going to go away for 4 or 5 days to my home county of Kent. It's my little nephew's first birthday, so I'm going to go to my brother's house. I'm going to have a little party, so that'll be really sweet. And I'm hoping as well to go glowworm hunting and find some orchids because Kent is absolutely incredible for orchids. There's lots of different sorts of rare orchid spots that I know, and yeah, hopefully we're going to go on a little wander through the meadows and see what we can find. I'm really excited about that, but I'm also really excited about finding glowworms. So I don't think I am going to make a dedicated bed for strawberries anymore. I find that they do quite well just scattered about the garden, and I can put these little bins over and it keeps them fairly safe. I was finding that when I was reserving an entire bed for strawberries, it was just taking up a lot of space throughout the whole year. So I really like how they're kind of interwoven throughout all of the flower beds here. And I've got some in the duck pen as well in hanging baskets, and they've done really well because nothing can get in there. So I think I actually might try and build some more sort of shelving for pots to hang inside that duck pen, and I can grow lots in there because if it's above duck height then it's really safe, and like I say, no critters can get in because it's completely sealed. So it's actually a really good bit of protected growing space in there. It's a little one. God, they are massive. Not quite as sweet as some of the other varieties I've had. They're still pretty delicious. These canes are absolutely dripping in these little raspberry jewels, and they're very tiny this year, but I suspect that's because they're starting to get a bit crowded out here from my cherry tree and my pear tree canopy. And when I planted these raspberry canes, these trees were much smaller, so they did actually get quite a bit of full sun, but now they're just about managing some dappled light. So I think I'm going to remove these in autumn and pop them in a bit more of a sunnier spot so they can plump up. But they are still extremely delicious, just a little bit smaller. There's actually quite a few raspberries down here, even in the shaded parts. And like I say, they can tolerate a bit of dappled light, but they do prefer that full sun. But it does just mean that raspberries are really great for forest garden systems because you can use them as part of your shrub layer underneath your main trees. Raspberries are also really great planted at the edge of forest garden systems because they can help to create a natural fencing and also really great shelter for wildlife as well. The raspberries are very hardy. They aren't very fussy at all, but they do thrive a lot better when given their preferred conditions. So raspberries really like to have their feet quite moist at all times. And I don't mean waterlogged, I mean just moist. And a really great way to do that is to provide quite a thick mulch at the bottom. I use wood chip, but you can use any sort of organic matter that naturally rots down. And that slow release of organic fertiliser means that they just get fed all year round rather than a shock of fertiliser at one point just before their growing season. It just means that they can create their best conditions throughout the year. I've actually got some golden raspberries through here, and I actually just thought that they were unripe raspberries. I forgot all about them. Look how tiny these are. So you might notice all of these dried lupin seeds, and I grow lupins next to my orchard patch because they help to fix nitrogen, and again these are really great for helping to feed your raspberries over the year. Lupins are in the legume family, and any legumes will help to fix that nitrogen into the soil. They create little tiny nitrogen nodules. I actually harvested some peas this morning. I'll pop in a little clip of the root balls because you can see all the little tiny nitrogen nodules on the end of the roots, and you want to keep those in the soil. So when you are harvesting things like peas and runner beans, make sure you just snip them at the base rather than pulling up the entire root ball, because that nitrogen will then get released back into the soil. And also you can chop and drop your leaves as well, and that helps too. And that is actually another reason why I grow comfrey. Let me take you around to the back. Right, so it is a little bit of a jungle back here, and I don't know if you can see, but I've started to cut down all of this comfrey here just so it gets a little bit more light into my currant bushes along here. And this orchard has got, let me count, we've got 2 cherry trees, 2 plum trees, a pear tree, red raspberries, yellow raspberries, pink currants, black currants, and I've also got some yoster berries down there as well. I haven't checked those this year. Be interested to see if I have very many berries because it's quite a low grown shrub and the animals usually get there long before I do. But I wanted to show you this section because it might look like a bit of a jungle, but all of these plants are actually helping this orchard. So this comfrey here is what's called a dynamic accumulator, and it's got very long tap roots that go really deep into the soil, and they draw up lots of minerals like potassium and calcium. And if you chop and drop these leaves and leave them on the floor to act, one, as a natural mulch to suppress the weeds, but 2, also as an organic fertilizer, so they'll break down very slowly and they'll end up feeding all of these plants. So it's a really great way of just getting free fertilizer just by planting comfrey. And I've got comfrey growing pretty much under most of my fruit trees, and I've also got it dotted around some of my flower beds as well. And like I say, I just use that as kind of like a chop and drop and a natural mulch as well. So this is a big old comfrey here that needs to come down. Ouch. They can be quite spiky comfrey. They've got little coarse hairs on them that can be quite sharp. Right, so can you see all of these beautiful pink currants? Now I've harvested quite a lot of these already. I took most of them away with me to Wales just for my breakfast, but there's quite a few still left, so I'm gonna harvest these and pop them in the freezer when I get home. Now these are absolutely delicious. They're a lot less tart than red currants, but they're not quite as sweet as what the white currants can be sometimes, so I find that they're a really great balanced berry and I absolutely love them. They're like proper little jewels, aren't they? So pretty. I want to sit down, but there's a bee on the comfrey, so I need to wait my turn. Currants are one of my favourite shrubs to plant in my little forest garden, and I've got quite a few spread all over the site. and I use them primarily as an understory shrub underneath my fruit trees because they can handle, well, they actually prefer partial shade. They can handle full sun too, but they actually really do thrive in partial shade. And I've got a red currant bush in my dead hedge at the back of the other plot that is completely in shade, and you've never seen more berries than what's on that shrub. It's absolutely dripping in little red jewels. It's so funny because like I say, it doesn't get any sunlight, and the birds can't find them either because they're really, really tucked in that dead hedge. I've got a small, precious handful of yosterberry, or josterberry, however you pronounce it. And these are really interesting shrub. They're a cross between a blackcurrant and a gooseberry, so they kind of got that sweet, tart flavour, but they're really, really delicious. I love them. I don't ever get very many berries because, like I say, it's quite a low-grown shrub, so the animals usually creep along and get them before me. But they're very delicious. Right, I'm going to go harvest the rest of these currants now. Before I crack on with the cherries above me, I've got some white currants, some red currants and some black currants over in that plot. And the ducks have been very quiet, so I'm going to see what they're up to. I've banned them from this section for today because I've just planted out some sweet corn and they're just going in and trampling in it all. So I'm going to give it a few days for the roots to settle in before I let these duckies back over this side. So this is my blackcurrant shrub, and I don't know if you can see, but there are loads and loads of currants on here. They're all ripe now. I've left them a little bit longer than what I usually would. I did risk it from the pigeons, but they didn't seem too fussed. They were picking off quite a lot of the green ones when they first started to form, but yeah, they've left them alone since. And some of these are proper chunky. Look at those. So many, isn't there? As with the other currants, black currants thrive in neutral to slightly acidic soil. But they are hardy, but they don't really do too well in very compacted soil. So if you do have a compacted or heavy clay-like soil, you can add in quite a bit of organic matter to prep the soil beforehand. They'd really, really benefit from that. And yeah, it took quite a few years before this shrub really took off, but I mean now I harvest, I don't know how many kilos, but kilos of it across the season. It is quite a big one and a few years old, but yeah, it did take a while for it to establish, but now there is no stopping it. And even when the pigeons get to them, there's still a fair harvest. But like I say, this year they've not been too bothered by it, which I'm very happy about. Every year I make the standard blackcurrant cordial with these currants, but this year I think I might try something a little bit more creative. I haven't really decided what yet, but I've got such a bounty this year, it'd be such a shame to blitz them all down just to make a cordial. I really love learning about local recipes and trying them out. My friend told me about a dessert called clafoutis. It's a French dessert and it's made with traditionally sour cherries, I think, but they're also made with the mismatch of berries that you get in the summer. It's a really, really great way to use up all those random little bits of berries towards the end of the summer when you haven't got too much of just one variety. But it's really delicious. So if you do have any recipes, let me know. I'd love to hear them. Honestly, is there anything better on a summer's afternoon than just harvesting berries? I don't think so. I used to love it when I was little, stealing raspberries from over the fence of my next door neighbour, and then I started foraging for berries, and now I grow my own. I've actually got quite a few more blackcurrants than I thought, and I've got another one of these plastic punnets, so I think I'm going to swap out the currants because they're a bit of a softer fruit. I don't want them to get crushed by these big old beefy black currants, so I'm going to swap them out. Gosh, there's still about another third of this on the bush, but I think that's enough for me, and I'll leave the rest for the birds, I reckon. Pretty stoked with that. So my red currants they are south-facing, but the bush is massive. It goes all the way back. You can see what I mean about how they can grow even in complete shade, because down here in this thicket they're not getting any light at all, and you can see that they're all ripening. Now I have harvested most of these red currants, but I left a few that were still little and green that seem to have ripened up now, so I'm going to crack on and harvest these. And there's still quite a few under here. Always look underneath the bush, never from the top. Look, they're all in there. I can't even reach these. It's great practice to leave lots for the birds anyway, so they can have those ones. I actually can't believe how many red currants I ended up harvesting. I thought that there wasn't very many left, but I had a proper good rummage. Absolutely gorgeous. Got way more than I thought there. There's still a ton left inside that bush. Hey guys! So next up to harvest is all of these cherries, and this tree is laden with them this year. The pigeons just haven't been bothered, which is very surprising. I don't know what's up with them, but look, absolutely everywhere. Can you see all of these cherries? Now I've actually got two trees here. I've got a very mature one and a slightly smaller one over there, and yeah, both of them are full and ripe, so let's get harvesting. It's the last lot of fruit that I've got to harvest today. If you harvest cherries with the stem on and leave them with the stem on in the fridge, they'll last a lot longer. This one's had a nibble out of it. I'll leave that one on there for them. There's going to be so many that I can't reach. I might have to get my ladder, or actually might get my ladder when I come back and get the rest of them. Can you see all of these cherries? Absolutely everywhere. Look at them. So this is my smaller tree just here, and the more mature tree just behind me. But I think I'm going to harvest all of the ripe cherries and some of the slightly underripe cherries, because slightly underripe fruit stores a lot better. But obviously the riper fruit I can eat right now. So I think I'm going to harvest what I can and leave some of the smaller green ones on for when I get back. It's actually quite late already. I've spent the whole entire day harvesting fruit. So it looks like I'm going to be going to Kent tomorrow morning, I reckon. Don't think I've got time tonight now to get sorted and drive down. So it might give me a couple of hours at home to process some of this. There's a lot of cool folklore to do with cherry trees. Some say that bringing cherry tree branches inside is considered unlucky, and cherry blossom at a wedding is unlucky too. But in England and Ireland, the cherry trees were often planted outside homes to protect against evil spirits. And under the ancient Irish Brehon law, the cherry tree was classified as the second highest ranking tree. And if you were to unlawfully cut one down, then you would incur a fine of 2.5 dairy cows. I'm not quite sure where the half a cow came from. I'm just going to try and fill my basket if I can, and then leave it at that, I think. So if you don't already have a cherry tree, then I really recommend planting one, because they are just such a joy. You get multiple harvests. You get the beautiful ornamental and edible cherry blossom in the spring. Then you get these lovely cherries in the summer. You can use their pits to make a lovely sort of almond essence, and also the crystallized sap that comes from the tree as well. That, if you do manage to harvest any, is delicious. It's very, very sweet and kind of like a natural candy. Unlike some other fruit trees, cherry trees don't generally create a really dense cover or canopy, so you often get that dappled light underneath, which is really, really perfect for those understory shrubs when you're layering your plants in a forest garden system. And the basket is starting to get full, but I've still got quite a few over here. Last year, I didn't get any cherries from this tree, or maybe a handful. And this year, honestly, I think I'm going to end up with about 10 of these little baskets, at least, because there's just so many. We're in the waxing gibbous phase, and the waxing gibbous phase, or the growing moon, is the best time to harvest your fruit crops. All of the sap rising throughout the tree creates really, really juicy fruits, and it's a really great time to harvest them for their maximum freshness. It's thought that energy is being sent upwards, up into the leaves and the fruits, and that is why it's the best time to harvest your leafy greens or your fruit crops or anything above ground. We generally wait for a waning moon before harvesting things like our root crops, but the waxing gibbous phase is the perfect time for harvesting your aerial parts of your plants, so your fruits and your leafy greens. I'm getting stuck every time I move. I'm gonna get the snippers on that as soon as I'm finished with this. I think I might have to admit defeat on these in a minute, because there's no way I'm going to be able to harvest all of these. It's nearly 8 o'clock and I really, really need to get back and pack for tomorrow. But I can't think of a better way to spend an evening, to be honest. How lucky I am to have such a beautiful garden, and the space and the means and the ability to be able to grow my own food. Not everybody gets that privilege, and I know that I'm very, very lucky. A few more, I reckon, and then I'll call it a day. How nice is that evening chorus?
You can have some, but don't stand on them.